Hello and welcome to the Naked Expat channel. I was listening to a podcast the other day and it was talking about this retreat that men and women went on with their AI partners to socialize with other men and women that are in relationships with AI partners. And I was like, what? I'm obviously getting too old. I'm going to come on to that in another video because that's just absolutely blew my mind. But it got me thinking about relationships in general. And I know I've covered this before, and I'm not judging anybody for what relationship they're in. But I've got some of my young subscribers that are saying, well, how do I become an expat? I want to work abroad. I'm fed up in the States. I'm fed up in the UK and Europe. I've had messages and encouraging compliments about the Naked Expat channel and what I'm striving to try and achieve, which is wonderful. And I take everything on board. And nobody's perfect. Nobody knows everything, myself included. I want to try and build a community where we help other people out. Now, expats or potential expats that have already reached retirement age have got a completely different mindset to younger men and women in their 20s or 30s. They want to maybe teach English as a foreign language abroad, want to be abroad as like a digital nomad. I use the term digital nomad cautiously because in most instances, people aren't digital nomads. They're not nomadic. They're essentially workers that are able to work remotely because of modern technology. Maybe they have got their own online business, affiliate marketing, selling e-products, courses, etc. Or they're working for a company that doesn't require them to come into an office very often, if at all. They may be copywriting, etc. Some of these digital nomadic people are not going to have jobs in the future because it's all going to be taken by AI. But those that do have jobs are really digital remote workers. And they're generally younger and they're looking for advice as to maintaining their expat lifestyle or becoming an expat and working and living abroad. And the key thing with younger people, again, going back to my younger years, I always remember my parents and my grandparents always saying, never a lender or a borrower be. In other words, don't lend money, don't borrow money, and save. And you look at anybody that's successful, certainly the entrepreneurs, the very successful businessmen and businesswomen that are interviewed in massively successful YouTube channels like Diary of a CEO, which is a fantastic YouTube channel. And you see the people that are interviewed on there, and there's a common thread that runs throughout all of it, which is exercise prudence when it comes to money, respect money, don't be ruled by it. But I think number one word amongst all of it is discipline. And that really should be fundamentally the catch-all word for everybody, certainly younger men and women, is about discipline. You look at, I see people in Asia in Starbucks. It's almost like a rite of passage. You wake up in the morning, you get ready for work, you go to Starbucks, you pick up your coffee, you go out and spend $30 on lunch. Well, that's a nonsense. I always used to take packed lunches, even when I was successful in business. I always used to make a packed lunch in the morning and take it with me. Whether I was in the office or driving to see clients, visiting clients, I never bought lunch. It's bullshit. I never had time for lunch. I was eating on the go. Now, I'm not saying, like lunch is for wimps, but at the end of the day, you got to be, why are you spending $25, $30 on lunch? $5 on a coffee? You're never going to get rich doing that. It's complete bullshit. So again, it's discipline. And discipline is really, really important. And discipline's not only important for younger people, but also for older expats coming up to retirement or in retirement. Because if you're not disciplined, or if you're with a partner who's not disciplined, your finances are going to take, and your lifestyle is going to take a hit on it. Here's an analogy. Go into your closet and look at your clothes. And I bet you about 20% of your closet you wear. And the other 80% is just a waste of money. You don't wear it, or you very, very rarely wear it. I bet you 20% of your closet you wear, which represents value for money, because it was worth buying it, because you use it, you wear it. I bet you 80% of your closet you don't wear. It's been a complete waste of money. People accumulate crap. Again, lack of discipline. You buy stuff. Marketing departments are all there to enable you to encourage you to buy more stuff. You look at Apple and they only update iPhones and their laptops and iPads for like what, 5 years? And then it's kind of redundant. You can't get the latest upgrades. They don't, the new system, the modern operating systems don't work on the older systems because the chip technology inside is redundant. It's all disposable. The society is like a disposable society. I've heard it before, but it's true. People accumulate too much crap. And one thing living in Asia over the last 20 years has taught me, because I was successful before, I had fancy cars, had a nice house. And I used to try and impress people, especially women. You know, I take them out for fancy meals and buying bottles of champagne and trying to impress them. But I came from a position of insecurity, not from strengths. And I was very insecure. I felt like I had to spend money, not to be flashy, but to prove to a woman that I was worthy. Because I had money, I was stable, I was successful. And if she chose me as her boyfriend, then she'd be doing all right. But it was completely the wrong way around. I was looking to impress them. Well, actually, I should have been the one sat here thinking, actually, hang on a minute, you impress me. What the fuck have you got to offer me? That should have been it, but I was too insecure. I didn't see it. And it was only when I moved to Asia did I realize, actually, hang on a minute, a lot of these material things, they don't matter. I got a wonderful story. I'll just share this with you if you'll just bear with me, because it is a wonderful story. I'm not blowing smoke up my ass. But there was a woman who was a manager in a guest house sort of hotel that I owned, and in Thailand, and her name was Kung. And I was talking to her, and I was showing her pictures of a new car that I'd bought in the UK, and it was a Porsche, as you pronounce it, 911 Turbo 996. And it was a great car, and it was polar silver. It was beautiful, kind of lovely ice blue silver, lovely car. I absolutely loved it. And I was saying to her, "Wow, look at this car. This is my new car. It's my new car." She said, "Oh, Andrew, that looks very beautiful." I was like, "Yeah, it does over 200 miles an hour. It's a brilliant." And she was like, "Wow, does it really go that fast?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic." And she looked at me straight in the eye and she said, "What? You can drive that fast in England?" And I said, "Well, no." She said, "How fast can you drive in England?" And I said, "Well, it's miles an hour. It's 70 miles an hour." And she looked at me, typical kind of like Buddhist mentality. And she looked at me and said, "Well, why you got a car that goes so fast if you can only drive at 70? And I sat there and thought, "Andrew, you've just made yourself out to look like the biggest dick ever." And I got it. And that was kind of like a moment in time for me, a lesson. I just thought, you know what, I've just made myself look like a complete dick. And she's right. And within 3 months of me going back to the UK, I'd sold that car and got rid of it. And within 6 months, I'd given up everything. I moved to Asia permanently because I got it then. Actually, she's right. Why on earth have I got a car that does 200 miles an hour or nearly 200 miles an hour, whatever it was, Porsche Turbo. I mean, it was a quick car, a beautiful car. And it was quite expensive at the time. I don't know how much they are now, but at the time it was about £120,000, whatever that is in your money. And it was a beautiful car. But I got it. Actually, hang on a minute. What is the point? What is the point? It was just like psychological strokes, as my life coach used to tell me. It was just psychological strokes. It made me feel big. It made me feel successful. Look at me, I'm the big I am. Was actually, it was an insecurity purchase, and I got it. So literally within 6 months, I'd sold up everything and I was living in Asia. So, so I've been through that myself. And since I've been in Asia, you don't worry about what clothes you wear. As long as you've got nice clothes, as long as you look presentable. People aren't label junkies. The very wealthy Thais, the very wealthy Filipinos or Chinese or Japanese, yeah, they will chase labels and they overdo it. It's a bit like the comic skits that you see on TV from like the 1990s where people were dressed head to toe in Burberry or Mulberry or Louis Vuitton or Chanel or Gucci, whatever. They're just label junkies. And it's quite funny because it's just over the top. And very much life is more a case of less is more. And in Asia, it's a lot easier to adopt a minimalistic lifestyle because people, as long as you look clean and as long as you look presentable and your clothes suit you, you don't need labels. You just need something that's comfortable. If you're walking the dog or going out, you can wear a shirt and shorts, cargo shorts, trousers. You can have a couple of nice dress shirts, but you don't need much. And certainly in Asia, if you're a foreigner, you don't want thick, heavy clothes. You just want something that's light and like linen or Thai silk or something that's easy, wearable, cotton. And of course, in Asia, the water's not that clean. It goes through washing machines. So if you buy anything that's white, it's not going to stay white for very long before it starts getting yellow armpits and stains and stuff, and you'll never get it out. You've got to chuck it out. So there's a tip. Don't wear anything white in Asia because it doesn't last very long being white before it starts going yellow. Looks like you've been smoking 100 cigarettes a day. The same was true with my mother. My mother, she didn't have a great deal of money. She was a very senior teacher in an all-girls school, but she had two expensive outfits. She had a aqua scooting ladies suit, the jacket and skirt, knee-length skirt, and a Chanel dress that my father bought her. And think, wow, aqua scooting in Chanel, fantastic. Not couture, but off the peg, but expensive and made very, very well. And they were quite expensive. But like my mother said to my father's name was David. And I can remember my mother saying to my father, David, I don't ask for much in this marriage, but if we ever go out, I want to feel nice. I want one nice dress and I'll look after it. And my father got that. My mother wasn't very demanding of much in life. She was a very modest lady, came from extremely poor family in Devon. Both my parents did. So it was a real treat. My mother had an aqua scooting ladies suit and a Chanel dress. My mother kept those 65 years of marriage. And my father had spent like 3 months' salary to buy her dress. But my mother wore it forever. And my mother, just like I think it was Coco Chanel that said, style never goes out of fashion. And it's true. Men only need 1 or 2 nice suits. You can get suits handmade in Bangkok. Just down at Nara, the Indian, the Sikh tailors in Bangkok are fantastic. I think Soy 11, Nara tailors, absolutely fantastic, number 1. Great, handmade suits, Egyptian cotton shirts with cutaway collars and everything else, double cuffs, beautiful. Few $100, absolutely best thing you'll ever buy if you need it. And that's all you need as a man. And a couple of nice suits for business. You don't need 50 suits. Women don't need all of these dresses, or the consumer society that you pump full of all of the advertising. You need more and more and more and more. No, you don't. And certainly you don't in Asia. You don't. Less is more. Like I say, look in your closet. See how much you actually wear. Probably not a lot of it. So why is this important? Well, if your mentality is quite minimalistic and you're modest and you're disciplined, what happens when you get a partner? A lot of partners might not be as disciplined as you. And the number one, if a young person asks me, what is your advice for being successful and retiring early and having a nice life? Well, all things being equal, if you've got health on your side and you're not a fool, alcoholic or drug addict or anything like that, and you work hard, the number one important decision in your life, if you get married or if you're with a long-term partner, is who that wife or husband or long-term partner is. Because that will make or break you as a person. Why is that important with Naked Expat as living abroad? Well, it's the same thing. Guys, you might be men or women that are subscribers to my channel. You may well have been in several long-term relationships before. You may well have been in several marriages before. And then you become an expat. Well, what's changed? Only your location. That's the only thing that's changed. You haven't changed, have you? Maybe you're hoping to change. Or maybe you've been lonely for a while. So you're desperate to get partnered up. Maybe you're kind of sucked into the false reality, really, the false dream that, are you in your 50s or 60s and you're going to have a pretty young thing as a girlfriend, and then you're going to get married, in Asia to a young, beautiful, attractive woman. Or if you're a middle-aged lady and you're going to places like Morocco or Turkey, you're going to meet a very young, handsome local boy and you're going to get married. As an older woman, you're going to have a new partner who's younger and more virile. Great, you can do that. But the number one thing in your life really needs to be, if you are disciplined about money, because let's face it, you've worked hard, you need to be with a partner. You need to do your due diligence, just like you would if you were investing or buying a business or buying a new car. You've got a family, you're probably not going to buy a Ferrari. You're in Asia with lots of speed bumps, probably not going to be buying a Ferrari. You live out in the provinces, you're probably going to be buying a 4x4, or at least an SUV that's got high ground clearance. If your area's liable to flooding, you're not going to be buying a Ferrari, are you? Not that I've got anything against Ferraris, but you get the idea. It's needs driven, not ego or passion driven. And the same needs to go for your relationships. It shouldn't be driven on ego. The amount of comments that I've had over the years, not just on my YouTube channel, over the years about, and the number one thing that notice a lot of expat men, especially in Asia, they mention, is how young and how beautiful and how attractive their partner is. And now there's no way I want a woman from the West. And they don't mention attitude first. They mention because they're fat and ugly. They don't mention their attitude first. It's always image-based first. Then they might talk about their kind of crabby attitude as like number two. But they're always proud, like it's arm candy. They're always proud of, look, I'm attractive. Why is that different to men being insecure in the West when they meet a millionaire or billionaire that's got an attractive young woman? What happens if you're in America or the UK or Europe and you see an attractive man in his 50s and he's got a 25-year-old Russian model as a wife? You may be happy for them, but you're thinking, she's only with him for the money. And if you deny that, you're in denial, aren't you? Because we all do it. Well, I've done it myself. I've been in the city, in London. I've looked at guys walking down the street, they're maybe getting out of a nice Bentley, Continental or something, and his girlfriend comes out, and she's not an escort, she's not a hooker, she's his girlfriend or his fiance or his wife, and he's like in his mid-40s, and she's like in her early 20s, and she's stunning. She's like, 5'11", blonde, Russian, Ukrainian, whatever, Eastern European. She's only with him for the money. It's a natural reaction. It's a natural reaction. It comes from insecurity. Because men, hunter-gatherers, we don't like the competition. But how is that any different to Western men going to Asia? How is that any different? Because then you become the millionaire. Indirectly, don't you? Because then you got the one, you're the one with the money. Don't think for 1 minute. It goes back to one of my very, very first videos about life is all about prostitution. It's transactional. If you don't like that word prostitution, life's transactional. It's what you're prepared to give and what you're prepared to get. And get over it if you don't think that that's right, because it is. Marriages are transactional. And depending on who you marry, it's either going to be right or it's going to be wrong. And marriages cost a lot of money, so you darn well better get it right. And do your due diligence. And how many of you guys that are Westerners coming to Asia, do your due diligence. Look at the woman, look at how much she spends, look at her lifestyle, look at whether or not she's very demanding. Because believe you me, probably 8 out of 10 women in Asia want a new iPhone. Before they met you, they might have a little Nokia that they're sending text messages on. But all of a sudden, they want an iPhone. All of a sudden, they want a Pomeranian dog with a diaper. All of a sudden, they want things. And you can see it online as well. A 25-year-old pretty woman who has morals and values and wants a man to treat her right and treat her like a princess. She's got 3 kids already. Well, all of a sudden she's got morals and she wants to meet a foreigner. But where were those morals a few years ago? I'm not judging those people because they could have been sweet talked into pregnancy and then the guy just buggers off, which is cruel and irresponsible. We know that. But you got to do the due diligence, and you got to look at their family as well. How rich or how powerful or not powerful the family is. In the local area, in the provinces, in the city, do they have any influence? Are they financially stable? What about her brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles? Are they all well? Are they all fit and healthy? Do any of them smoke or drink? A lot of them do. Are they generally healthy, or do some of them smoke like chimneys and drink on the weekends, all gather around on the table and start drinking Red Horse or San Miguel or Sing a beer, or depending on what country you're in, and get drunk or smoke? Because you darn well know that her family and her extended family are going to come asking for money, for help, family, and you got to do your due diligence. Do you want to take that person on board? Same with women. Any women that are watching this, you get involved with a guy. Look at the guy's attitude and his lifestyle. Is he a smoker? Is he a drinker? What is his social activities like? Does he have many friends? Is he going to be too dependent on you because his circle of friends is non-existent? Does he want to does he want to go out and do things? Because excluding countries like, say, the Philippines, where there isn't any divorce between locals, there's divorce I got divorced. There's divorce between foreigners and locals. I'll cover that in another video because that's quite interesting, how it can be done. Forget annulments because they're just like, they're so specific, and you basically got to bribe a judge to get an annulment because most people haven't lost their marbles. So the grounds for annulment are very vague. But I'll cover annulments and divorce in another video because it is quite interesting. But that's very specific to the Philippines. But essentially, over 50% of marriages end in divorce. So the biggest financial decision you'll ever make when you're with somebody is, are you with the right person? Because are they minimalistic? Are they careful with money? Will they always be? But not only him or her, but their family. Are they worthy enough? Or are you just basically marrying into trash? She might be pretty or he might be handsome. But look, how devoted are they to the family? Because if you come east, it's all about the family. It's not just about that individual person. So be very, very careful. If you ask lawyers in America, there was I forget who was being interviewed, but on the Diary of a CEO video, very successful entrepreneur, multi-millionaire, if not billionaire, very, very successful, was saying that, is essentially saying this, that number one mistake that people make is not being disciplined enough, and also marrying somebody that's not disciplined. Because behind every successful man or woman, there's an equally successful man or woman. Because marriages take partnership, marriages take teamwork. And he did a survey for a book that he wrote, and every single lawyer that he asked in America about the reasons for divorces in America, every single one of them said that in the vast majority of cases, infidelity could be worked out. It wasn't about infidelity. Infidelity didn't break the marriage. The number one reason why marriages failed was financial stress. Now let's take that and we can basically put that on an aeroplane or on a boat and take it to your expat location because you want to be an expat or you're an expat already. Because that doesn't change per location. And I fundamentally believe that guy was right. I mean, he's a billionaire anyway. Who am I to question? But he's right in that financial stress is the number one cause of relationship breakdowns in marriages, divorce, and also failure in relationships, whether you're married or not. financial stress is the number one. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But let's just look at a younger person that wants to become an expat as well. And let's just look at the money they might spend on lunch, $25, $30 on lunch every day. Going to Starbucks every day and spending what, $5 on coffee and getting into that kind of routine, which is just a complete and utter waste of money. I'd say to any young budding expats out there, whether you're in the US or Europe or Australasia, wherever you are and you want to maybe work or retire abroad, you need to, the general consensus, this isn't just my figures, the general consensus, I happen to subscribe to the idea, if you're 25 and you put away about 15% of your salary, and the average 25-year-old is earning about 40,000 US dollars, just consider a very, very sort of blue collar, 40,000, you save 15% of your salary from the age of 25. You say average salary rates. So as your salary goes up, you're investing 15% of an increasing figure over your working life until 65. So from 25 to 65, you're the average worker earning the average salary in the US, as an example. From the age of 25 to the age of 65, you save 15% of your salary. You will retire in today's terms with the equivalent of 1.5 million US dollars as a retirement nest egg in today's money. So there you go. There's my answer to you. If you're 25 or around that age and you want to have an expat life in retirement, or you want to work abroad now if you can get a job abroad and sustain it sensibly and save 15% of your salary for retirement. And if you do, you'll have a comfortable retirement, believe you me. And all you need to do with that 15% of your salary is invest it in an S&P 500 ETF. Minimal charges, less than 0.01% or something or other, with Vanguard or one of the others, S&P 500, and track the market from the age of 25 to 65. And and history has shown us that you'll get between 8 and 10% return over that period of your working life. It's not rocket science. You don't need to do bugger all. You don't need to buy, sell, trade, day trade, and all that crap, because fund managers don't beat the index over the long shot. They don't. I know a lot of fund managers. I work with a lot of fund managers in my time. And none of them have. It's complete nonsense. You're better off just tracking the market. People don't beat the market. It's like you trying to beat the house in a casino. Nah, just going to come around and bite you on the ass. You only hear about success stories. You never hear about people's failures. And for everybody that's made a little bit of money day trading, there's thousands that have lost money. Why go through the stress and the drama? Just track the market. What's the average return on equities? There it is. Track the S&P 500, job done. Go to sleep at night. Put 15% into a tracker. Great, fantastic. That's all you need to do, guys. It's all you need to do, trust me. The main thing is discipline. And when you come on to buying a house, and this is relevant for expats as well, because the vast majority of people borrow too much money to live in a house or spend too much money in retirement on a house or their accommodation. They get big itis. It's like a bodybuilder in the gym, want to get bigger and bigger and bigger. The vast majority of expats, and I mean the majority, not the minority, the vast majority of expats that are in retirement are living in properties that are too big for them. Now, what's too big? Well, they're married, the kids are grown up, and they're living in Thailand in a 3-bed condo or a 3-bedroom house. We don't need it. Or they've got lots of land. They've moved halfway around the world in retirement to get peace and quiet, but they're never going to assimilate into the community because they've just bought acres of land. They ain't got any neighbours, or their neighbours are miles away. I was reading a post on Facebook the other day about this guy that built a gorgeous property. I mean, it's a lovely property, and he's a real handyman, American guy. And he's bought a beautiful property on the west coast of Negros. So obviously, you know, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, so he gets lovely sunsets, and it's built up on a hillside. And he said it's like 3 hours away from the main road, and they've had to put in power lines, you know, posts with power and everything else to get to him. And because it's on the hillside, he's had to go down like 200 or 300 meters to get water and stuff. And he's got some solar as well. And it's a beautiful house, and he's done it. I mean, it is a stunning house. But it's him and his wife, and they're retired. They're living in there, and there's, what, 4 bedrooms, and it's beautiful, but it's huge. And just think of all the maintenance costs. And my question, which got quite a few likes on his Facebook, is like, yeah, okay, great, just don't get sick. Because if you're 3 hours away from the main road, how far are you away from a good hospital? Well, knowing Negros as I do, probably on that side of the island, on the west side, you've got to go all the way up round to Bacolod to get a half-decent hospital, and even then it's not great. So chances are you get sick, you're going to die. And all right, this is wonderful, you know, and I don't know how old the guy is. And I'm not going to judge somebody's lifestyle, because if he sits out on his veranda, he's got a beautiful sunset. But he got acres of land. He said it all needed to be cleared because it was just all jungle, and he had lots of run-ins with the local snakes and stuff, but he didn't mind the snakes because they kill the rats. Well, you know, he's got a point there. But, you know, it's in the middle of nowhere. And he says he lets the local farmers that are over yonder use a natural well because they always have done in the past, and he didn't want to upset them. So that's why he drilled down 200 or 300 feet to get his own water. Well, fair enough. So he's obviously in the middle of absolutely nowhere. But why do that? Because you're not assimilating with the local community, are you? You're miles away from anywhere. Now, certainly maybe his Filipino wife is quite happy with that. And he's a real handyman. He's done a lot of the work himself, apart from the groundworks and like the major structural things. We had local workers in. But he's obviously done a lot of work himself. And I mean, it's a fantastic house with a great, like, massive kitchen with a central island and everything else, which, you know, I initially I was quite jealous because I trained as a chef, and I looked at that kitchen, but wow, it's fantastic. But then I thought, actually, hang on a minute. I mean, it's a millstone round his neck. And like this billionaire on Diary of a CEO said, the vast majority of people live in houses that are too big for them. And I thought, do you know what? He's right. And then he started talking about retirement, which I'll go on to now, because it really double checks what I said previously about most successful expats rent, don't buy in retirement. And basically he's agreed with that, because he says that, and I agree with his philosophy, is that you should only buy a property if you need a mortgage, which most do, because that's the only reason for owning property is that you're a young couple and you want to start a family. So can you justify buying a house? Yes, you can. And the house, his figures, not mine, he's done a lot of research on it. Who am I to disagree with him? What he says makes a lot of sense. It's very prudent. You should only buy a property and borrow money to buy that property if it represents 1/3 of your income. 1/3. So that's how much you spend on the mortgage. And people say, oh, invest in property and everything else. Well, you're not really investing, are you? Because 90% of it, or whatever, 90% loan to value is the average loan on a property with a mortgage. You don't own it, the bank does. You got to hope, obviously, that it goes up in value, but a lot of properties sometimes flatlines. But irrespective of that, you know, a lot of people over the last 10 years have borrowed more money, and they've bought houses that are too big. They don't need them. And they've overextended themselves because they've borrowed money when interest rates were really cheap, like 2 or 3%. And now they're going up like 5, 6, 7%. And whereas previously their mortgage might have represented 1/3 of their income, now it's representing 70% of their income. That's the route to failure, man, because you've got no other way of investing money. You've got to have a diversified portfolio. Property is okay, but it's not the be-all and end-all. You need equity, you need bonds, gilts, you need gold, you need cryptocurrency as well, which is another avenue. You need to diversify. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. You just don't. But when you come into retirement as an expat, certainly if you move into a foreign country where the building regulations, land ownership and everything else can be vastly different from what you're used to. in most cases it is vastly different, you don't need it. You simply don't need it, apart from your own insecurity or the pressure from the partner that you're with, either the girlfriend, fiance or wife, or boyfriend, fiance and husband, that's got a totally different selfish mentality to you, because they might not just be thinking about what's in your joint best interest, they might be thinking about the legacy you're going to leave, because they're thinking about themselves and their family. And if they're, if you're a Western guy married to a Thai or a Filipino, they're not going to mind you building a house in the middle of nowhere, because ultimately they're going to get it, not you. But why have you got it? Why are you living in a huge, gorgeous house, which is obviously going to take massive upkeep? It's like these people that build beautiful 3-bedroom bungalows in places like Dumaguete or anywhere near the beach or near Cebu, and the houses just get eaten by the salty air. And so they just spend hours, days, weeks, months, years maintaining their property, because it's just all getting corroded, and they don't need it. You very rarely, you can enjoy your sunset, but a lot of people, when they're sitting out on their veranda, they're enjoying the sunset because it's not so hot. They're in the shade, they've got a beautiful sunset. They're out there for 20 minutes before, oh, bugger this, I'm going inside, it's too many mosquitoes. Or during the day, depending on where the sun is, high in the sky, whatever, it's too hot. Or you got other things to do. Or you got the constant maintenance, the constant upkeep, the painting, everything else, termite damage, whatever it might be. Big houses, big headaches, low maintenance. And also, if you end up suddenly realizing, I don't like it anymore. And going back on to my comment yesterday about how now you can update the SRV retirement visa in the Philippines every 2 years now, and which is great, because you only need to get the 2x2 photographs every 2 years, not every year, and go down there with your passport and pay the money and see you again in 2 years' time. Fantastic, great. And that leads me on to relationships. Relationships break down. I was on a 13A visa with my Filipino ex-wife. My relationship broke down. I was divorced a while ago. We got legally separated 6 years ago. And I had joint custody of my son. And, I never thought that would happen. And it was devastating initially, and then you get over it. And I was lucky that I could go onto the retirement visa. I had to go onto the basic one because I wasn't old enough for pension income to come in. But when you look at the advantages and disadvantages and what can happen, on a retirement visa, and I've lived in Thailand, I've lived in Malaysia, I've been lucky enough to live in other countries in Eastern Europe, Russia and Ukraine, and in Latin America. I've been over to Latin America, and I've lived in near Ipanema in Rio, in Brazil, and Buenos Aires, and I've spent time in Cuba, and these places are wonderful. Now, I'm not going anywhere whilst my son is nearly a teenager, until he's reaches the age of majority and he's 18 or 21, and I know he's settled. But when he is, it's like, okay, well, do I want to just be in the Philippines? Do I just want to be here all the time when I know that there's a massive world out there? And depending on my health, I'm fit and healthy and probably fitter than I've ever been. Fantastic. But anybody that's been to Thailand knows the food's amazing. Anybody that's been to Vietnam knows the food's amazing. Anybody that's been to Turkey, they love meat, they love lamb. Anybody that's been to Greece, they know the food's amazing. In the Mediterranean, it's just absolutely out of this world. You go over to Brazil and they've got some of the best steaks on the planet. The world's massive out there. And I'm not saying travel all the time. But come off it, if you've got a big house in Negros, facing west, beautiful, fantastic, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do? It's huge, it's middle of nowhere, so you've got to invite friends around. When people say, oh, I can invite friends around and have a barbecue and I can host and have a great gatherings with my expat friends. Well, who are they? And how often are you going to do that, realistically? Why don't you live in a modest little house, which is really low maintenance? And then if you want to get together with your buddies, go and hire a resort out for 30,000 peso. Hire it out for the night and get some chefs in. Or do the barbecuing yourself, or whatever you want to do. Hire the whole resort out for 30,000 for the night. Well, better than having them traipsing around your house and what have you. The only reason you got that is your ego. Look at me. Oh, it's fantastic. Look at me. Whoa. I can see for miles. And you don't want the neighbours right close to you because of the noise and everything else. Well, do you? Do you really want that? I love going out and walking my dog in the subdivision. I can say hello to my neighbours and everything else. And I lived in the property in Negros, but on the other side, in Amlan, on the eastern side. And I lived in, he was retired, he was the French ambassador to the Philippines, and I lived in his beach house. I had 9,000 square meters of garden, literally from the main road to the beach. And I had a private section of beach, although technically, you know, the beach isn't private in the Philippines. And I had my own little coral reef. I used to go out snorkeling every day. And it was just amazing. But okay, I had neighbours, I had a resort at one side of me, and it was open land, and a few fishermen that had little like tents and hammocks over the other side. But in the night time, whenever you hear a little noise, you're like, what's that? What's that noise? You know, it's not the same. You do feel a little bit more vulnerable out in the province. And, well, I did anyway. Any little, you know, there's a bump in the night, you think, shit, what's that? Are we getting raided? And also, again, you got a beautiful property like that. Don't you think locals are going to know that you got a beautiful property like that? Are you making yourself out to be perhaps a target for home invasion? Don't think they can't make you disappear, because they can. You might say, oh, I'll get a couple of dogs. Well, a couple of dogs ain't going to stop somebody from stealing all your stuff. They'll just poison the dogs. Again, going back to this Diary of a CEO video that I was watching, he's absolutely right. In retirement, especially, people make financial mistakes when they're younger in that they take on board too large a property because they want to keep up with the Joneses. Big mistake. You don't need to keep up with anybody. Be very, very disciplined. Live a minimalistic lifestyle, which is relatively easy in Asia because people aren't generally label junkies unless they're the rich Asians. But they want to show off to other rich Asians, and they want to go abroad and spend all their money and splash their cash. Well, that doesn't affect you if you're in Asia. Just let them go off and do what they want. Who cares? More fool them. You can live a modest lifestyle, you can live a minimalistic lifestyle, and you need to be with the right partner in order to continue to live that minimalistic lifestyle. And not just the partner, but their family as well. You need to do your due diligence, because most expats don't. They simply don't. And most expats that I see in Asia, if you see a big house being built and lived in, chances are it's expat money. Chances are the nice house in the province is expat money. You go to Isan, you go to Udon Thani, you go over towards Laos, you look at places there that are nice, all gated and stuff, and air conditioning and tinted windows, solar panels, everything else. It's foreigners, it's Falang. It's not locals. And then all the young girls that see this, oh, I'm going to get myself a foreigner, I'm going to get myself a Falang because I want a house like that. Chances are they will end up with it, because guys don't think with their head, you know, they think further south of that. And you know, you pays your money, you takes your chance, I know. But ultimately, don't go too big. Live simple. Where I live is a 2-bedroom bungalow. That's all I need for myself and my son, and it's rented. When my son reaches the age of majority, well, I might not be here. I'm flexible. I don't have to be. I owned property before. Luckily, I got half of it back when I got divorced. Does it make me cynical? No, it makes me very cautious though. Because I look back on it and I critique myself and say, why did I do that? Well, I wanted to do the right thing as a responsible husband. And, you know, with a very young son, I wanted to make sure we secured and we owned the house. But looking back on it now, do I regret that? Well, no, I don't. But is it a relief? Yeah, it is a relief. Because I see it, other places have been built around there some sort of 8 years now. 7 years, and I look at some other places and I look at that area and think, well, actually that area, I thought it was great and my house was beautiful. Yeah, it was 3 stories, I had my own gymnasium and everything else. And I look back and think, yeah, but was it really the be all and end all? Well, no, I look back on it, do I miss it? No, I don't. I don't miss it. The kind of novelty wore off in the end. And I'm much more central now, but in a lovely subdivision. But I know that it's not going to be forever. I will use my own prudence and wisdom to ensure that I'm near hospitals and I'm near an airport And ultimately, irrespective of where I am, I don't ever want to be too far away from my son. When he grows up and he like flies the nest and gets a good job, maybe he'll be an OFW, I don't know. He's got a British and Filipino passport. He can go and work in England if he wants. But I don't know. He can do whatever he wants to do. Ultimately, I don't want to be thousands of miles away from my son. I don't really want to do that. That's how I feel right now. My attitude might change. But will I stay in the Philippines or be in Thailand? I love the food in Thailand. I love the infrastructure. And in a lot of ways, Thailand is still remains like 30 years ahead of the Philippines. But then I know if I'm in Thailand with all the singing, terrible singing, everything else, I know I'll miss the Philippines. I'll know I'll miss the lovely smiles, the genuine smiles in the Philippines. They say Thailand is the land of smiles, but only half the smiles are friendly. You don't understand that a lot of the Thai smiles not friendly at all. There's a lot of differences. I'll miss the harmonious singing in the Philippines. Not everybody can sing in the Philippines, but the vast majority can. And I'll miss, like today, for example, I went to the gym early this morning and there were some workers doing some groundwork outside and they had the radio on. And they were playing like Western music, rock music and stuff like that. Well, you wouldn't hear that in Thailand. It'd be Thai music. Just crazy shit. Just horrible racket. But in the Philippines, no, they got a good idea of decent music. So I'll miss that. I'll miss being able to sit down and have a coffee and talk to random strangers outside a little sari store. I'll miss that because you don't get that interaction with Thais so much. You do in hotels and in restaurants because they're paid there to serve you, but not genuine sort of friendships that you can spark up any minute. No, you don't. So I'd miss that about the Philippines. So will I live between the two? Well, I might do, or I may well. I love like Cascais and Estoril around Portugal. I think it's beautiful, and I love my history. So maybe I'll spend a little bit of time there. One thing that's not said enough is if people have been divorced before, and if you've watched a couple of my other videos, how if you can get your head sorted out in your 50s, 60s and 70s, you shouldn't be desperate to be with somebody. You can have company, but you can have company on your terms. You don't need to get married. You don't need full-time relationship. You just don't need it. If you're secure enough as a man, you don't need it. Or as a woman, if you're secure enough, you don't need a partner 24/7. Certainly if you still want to experience the world and travel, you don't want somebody dragging you around. It's an extra cost. You don't want that. You can have a relationship on your terms. Yeah, sure you can. Of course you can. But some good advice to a lot of you guys out there is why don't you just date until you drop dead? Why get married? Why end up in a long-term relationship with the wrong person? A lot of you guys will mention that how beautiful and sexy your Filipino or your Thai girlfriend is, or fiance or wife, and how lovely you are. And you walk around like eye candy. And I say, well, why don't you date somebody closer to your age? Maybe only like a 10 or 15 year age gap. Oh, no good, they've all gone to seed, they're a bit old now. Well, how old is suddenly your partner going to defy the laws of science and physics, and suddenly she's going to stay beautiful all of her life? No. I never got it before with guys that perpetually just dated and never got settled down. But as I get older, I realise, actually, hang on a minute, they might be onto something. Because you ask any woman, and they want a long-term relationship, they want to settle down and everything else, they want the security. Well, yeah, no shit, Sherlock, they want the security. You're giving them the security. You're giving them the security. And what do you get in return? Sex and somebody who can cook. Maybe rub your feet and give you a back massage every now and again. That's what you're getting. You're not getting financial security from them. They're probably going to bleed you dry. They're like a slow puncture on your finances. I'm not wrong. A lot of you guys might not like hearing that. But they are. A lot of women in Asia are like slow punctures. Because there's always something. There's always something you've got to pay for. Always something going out. Whether you're a long-term girlfriend, fiance, there's always something. There's always an expense. Someone's always sick. There's always something. It's always a slow puncture. Or like a hole in the bucket. And you're filling it out with your money. They're not bringing you any financial benefit whatsoever, really. A lot of you guys will only get married because you want a 13A visa. Well, what happens when your relationship breaks up? I can tell you what happened because I went through it myself. As soon as you break up from your partner, that 13A is no longer valid. Because once you're separated, it is deemed that your wife is no longer supporting your 13A visa. So technically from that date, you're on a tourist visa. It's the same when your wife dies. If your wife dies before you and you've been living in the Philippines for a long time, you're on your ass. You're straight onto a tourist visa. And throughout that period of grieving, you got to quickly go on to what? If you want to stay here, retirement visa. You've got to go through all of that process whilst you're grieving. That's why some people, even if they're married, some guys will choose and go down the SRV retirement route rather than the 13A visa route, because it ain't just about cost. It's about long-term security. And if your relationship breaks down, like mine did, my marriage years ago, I was grateful that I went onto a retirement visa. One thing that you should remember is that marriages are economic unions. They're economic. Because life is transactional. They are economic. And you got to ask yourself what your partner brings to the party. Marriage is a business. And your first child in a marriage is money. And that's why a lot of marriages break down. Ask any lawyer in the States. The research has been done for you already. Plenty of books on that. Number one reason why marriages break down, financial stress. It's not infidelity. It's not affairs. People get over those. And who you marry, especially expat guys who have been single, divorced previously, and then they feel under pressure when they become expats and they've got a younger partner to kind of, their own insecurity, or better marry her, put a ring on it. What's that saying go? If you want it, you better put a ring on it, or whatever it was. Is that Beyonce or something? But they're kind of like desperate. I'm going to lose this one, so I better marry her. And yet marriage is like the huge, who you marry is a huge, huge financial decision. It is one of the most major financial decisions of your life. And you're going to be doing it as an expat in retirement? Really? You want that drama now? After you've worked so hard for what you've got all of your life, suddenly you're going to risk it? And in a lot of instances, lose at least half of it, if not more? Because any successful marriage requires joint financial decisions. And most expats that are married in Asia do not make financial decisions jointly. So you've got to ask yourself, is it really a marriage, an equal partnership? No, it's not. No, it's not. You keep some of your finances secret, or you basically look down at your partner because perhaps they're a lot younger than you. Sure, they're not as prudent as you. Maybe it's different. So is it really a marriage? Or you just stuck a ring on it so that nobody else can have it? Ask yourself. Not me, ask yourself. And when you are with somebody, there's 5 different types of people. The first one is a mooch, and they won't pay for anything. And you got to ask yourself, are you really with them just for companionship? And are they with you for companionship? Do they really love you? They just want you to pay for everything. Is it real? The second type of person is a spendaholic. This was a bit like me previously, where I felt like I had to pay for everything, pay for the bills, go out for nice meals on dates and buy champagne and try and impress, because it came from a place of insecurity. I felt like I had to show that I was worthy enough. So I used to spend, I had nice cars and everything else. I felt like I had to spend money to validate myself. Completely wrong, massively insecure. And if you know anybody like that, it is a warning sign, because that type of person is unstable. I know, because I was like it myself. For sure, when I was in the West. Then you got the loafer, and that's somebody that's just basically a lazy ass, don't want to do anything. Now you're soon going to get bored of a person like that. And if it's you, get a hobby, get an interest, get off your fat ass. Or if it's somebody that you look at youngsters nowadays, they're sitting around on their phone, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you do, and you can't even have a conversation with a loafer. They don't want to do anything, and they're reliant on you. Well, sorry, but that's just going to go stale, that relationship. You don't want to be with somebody like that. It's completely boring. They're just into themselves. They're just lazy. They're just lazy ass. And what do? Eat. Eat food and get fat. That's all they do. You don't want to be with a person like that. Then you got like a thief. And if you're a thief or you're with somebody who's a thief, hello. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to appreciate that you don't want to be with somebody that steals. Suddenly things go missing. Money out of your wallet. They might just want a little bit extra and they'll just take it without asking. And people do that. People assume that because they're with somebody that maybe they can take liberties. Take a little bit of money out of your wallet, a bit here, a bit there, take stuff. And obviously you don't want to be with somebody that's dishonest. No way, absolutely no way. And then you've got the meanie, somebody that doesn't spend too much, who's careful with their money. And they come across as being a little bit mean, a little bit tight. And surprise, surprise, you go to Thailand and what are you going to be called? A cheap Charlie. Are you a cheap Charlie? You're a little bit of a meanie? Yeah, why? Because you're not stupid. And if you're a guy or a girl and you're looking for a partner, find a meanie. Find somebody that's tight and cautious with their money. They don't spend money unduly. Because that's the sort of person that's going to help you keep your money, stay wealthy, or at least solvent. You want to be with a person like that. Find a meanie any day of the week over the other four that I've mentioned. Absolutely. Because those types of people exercise discipline. They're disciplined. And that's the type of thing that's going to keep a relationship going. Trust me. It is about discipline. And if they're disciplined, a little bit of a meanie, and they're a spendthrift, fantastic. That's exactly what you want. And that's why when you go to Asia, one of the most common terms that everybody's familiar with is cheap Charlie. Why? Because you're not a fucking idiot. That's why. You go to the bars and everything. You're not spending loads of money on lady drinks. You're not trying to impress everybody. Oh, he's a bit of a cheap Charlie. No, you're just prudent. You're exercising prudence and discipline. Anybody with half a brain is going to respect you for that. Women that call you a cheap Charlie, they haven't got half a brain. So that's why they don't respect you. If you meet somebody that's worried about they were supposed to pay you back a couple of days ago and they haven't, and they start sending you messages, oh, you know, I haven't paid you back, I'll pay you back on Friday, and you do actually get it back. Somebody that's got a conscience, somebody that pays you back money, you think, yeah, this person's got values. You need to be with that person. Absolutely, it makes a lot of sense. If people take the mickey out of you because you're a cheap Charlie, forget them. Because they're the ones that are going to be coming running to you asking for money when they ain't got none, because they've pissed it all away. And should you have any sympathy for them? No, you shouldn't. Fuck them. No, you shouldn't. It's tough. Life's tough. You're disciplined. Exercise discipline and you will be fine. Whether you're a man or woman, exercise diligence. Only get involved with somebody that brings added value to your relationship and is not a financial peasant. Because ultimately, if your wealth is there and their wealth is there, you're mismatched. It's going to cost you money. Why? Because you're not on equal terms. You're not on equal terms. They better damn well bring something to the party. Otherwise, you might as well be single. And you might as well date until the day you die. Because there's nothing wrong with that. Be happy and nobody's dragging you down. You won't be lonely. No need to ever be lonely. There's got to be something really, really wrong with you to be lonely in other countries. If you've got a little bit of money and you're comfortably off. Because if you've got a little bit of money and you're comfortably off, you don't need to be rich, just comfortably off, and you can pay the bills and you've got food on the table and you've got Wi-Fi, you're better off than about 98% of the people on the planet. So you are lucky. And you can spend time with people. And if you're a nice person, people are going to want to spend time with you anyway. You don't have to buy their friendship or their affection. You don't have to. And a lot of people make the mistake of thinking they got to splash the cash. You don't have to, guys. I used to be like that myself. I used to splash the cash to try and get affection. It was not necessary. It took me 20 years in Asia to realise, actually, I just need to be confident in myself and be a little bit cheeky and just be honest and authentic. And by being honest and authentic, people who are going to like you, people are not going to like you. They're going to dislike you. Well, great. Best to find out now rather than 5 years later. I hope you've enjoyed today's monologue. I'm going to talk in a different video about this partner AI retreat that I heard about on the podcast, because it is absolutely incredible how somebody can have an AI partner, but then physically go away to a location to meet other people on a retreat for people with AI partners. Because that's I'm just amazed. I'm getting too old, obviously. Anyhow, until next time, enjoy.